And so we once more engaged, though now presumably for the final time, the decade-plus running entertainment journalism Schrodinger's cat conundrum of whether or not Marvel's Black Widow movie is actually a big deal. If you'd lost the plot at some point, or never knew you were meant to care to begin with, way back when Marvel Studios was run by a weird mummy who didn't believe in making solo features led by women or minorities and also didn't have Disney's money to spend, they saved cash by signing the Avengers actors who didn't have their own movies like Scarlett Johansson to contracts where they were only able to do the team-up movies. So even when her Black Widow character got very popular and the different, much better guy got to run the studio, they had to wait and negotiate a new deal for Black Widow to get her own solo movie, which by that point, even though she'd been the first woman Avenger, Marvel had already made and or gone into production on its first female-led feature, its first female co-led feature, a critically acclaimed female-led series, several others in development, etc., and the character had been killed off, meaning a solo movie would now likely end up being a world-building prequel, putting at best a bow on a now concluded Infinity Saga era and serving as a send-off tribute to the character's dutiful perseverance through continued underservice. Interesting? Sure. Big deal in the way each new Marvel Cinematic Universe entry was fairly not expected to be, less certain, and that's to say nothing of the inevitable comparison to the once barren but increasingly fertile field of female-fronted action features that came pouring in to fill the vacuum as Marvel Disney didn't get the ball rolling on Black Widow in a timelier fashion. To be certain, at one point, what now seems a century ago, Johansson's presumed final MCU outing was once largely being framed as one of the Hit Factory's smaller second-tier releases a la the Ant-Man movies, a between-phases palate cleanser for the gritty, crunchy, action espionage, momentum-heavy, mythology-light side of the meta franchise that would at most introduce some fun new characters, load the bases for one or more of the upcoming TV shows, and deliver some kung fu and gunfights before a big stretch of cosmic sci-fi weirdo stuff coming down the pipe. And then there was a real-life plague, and going to the movies ended for a year, all the schedules got blown up and the whole world went to hell, and the marquee superheroine franchise rival to, well, either of Marvel's once and future box office queens laid an egg so foul in her sequel, Warner Brothers released the Snyder Cut just so people would stop talking about it, and then AT&T still sold them. All of which means Black Widow wound up effectively elevated from late-coming curiosity that film culture was probably going to shrug its shoulders at making almost $1 billion or so global anyway, because everything Marvel touches pretty much does, to the latest theatrical release that film culture is praying to the gods does almost $1 billion globally again and helps pull the theatrical business back from the COVID apocalypse. Avengers to the rescue once again. But is it any good? Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, as ever with these things, at a certain point you run out of things to say about the basics. Marvel is really f***ing good at this, and they've been really f***ing good at this for a while. So if your question is, does it deliver? Yeah, it delivers. If you've been craving the specific dopamine hit that this version of the genre from this specific property is consistently delivered and are ready to not only get an overdue hit with an agreeable sampling of new notes and some returning faves as well, this is probably exactly what you want out of it. It's a very satisfying version of what I needed it to be, and in most respects better than I expected it to be. It delivers the goods, those being, I guess, what you'd call the hard PG-13, as we're in the bullets, fists, and knives side of the Marvel world rather than the laser hammers and sparkle magic side, crossed between a superhero movie and a spy thriller. It works and I dig it. Whether or not it answers all the rest apparently being asked of it, and whether it was fair to ask that in the first place, that's a little more complicated, but by now we're past the point where anyone should be feeling bad for the Marvel machine wincing under the burden of its own glorious purpose. In any case, plot-wise, less a sequel to the previously completed story of Johansson's Russian spy turned S.H.I.E.L.D. spy turned Avenger Natasha Romanoff than an in-between-quel situated in the immediate aftermath of the good guys' breakup in Captain America Civil War and their reunion in Avengers Infinity War, where events contrive to fill in audiences on the heroine's remaining still mysterious backstory. The genre-mandatory overcomplicated setup finds the now fugitive Natasha hiding out in her old European spy game haunts, only to be contacted by Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, a fellow trainee of the creepy post-Soviet Red Room assassin academy that made the Black Widow in the first place, but also her surrogate sister from a previously unmentioned childhood posing as the American-style sleeper cell family. The quick version, the nasty business in Budapest that the other movies kept alluding to, apparently involved a one last dirty deed Natasha believed had destroyed the Red Room program and eliminated Ray Rinstone as its particularly nasty apparatchik mastermind Dreykov, but apparently they both came back with a vengeance and graduated from psychological to chemical and surgical Marvel sci-fi level mind control, gifting Dreykov with a global army of orphan girls turned next-gen Black Widows under remote control that until recently included Yelena herself, who is now free thanks to science magic pixie dust brainwashing antidote she wants the original Black Widow's help in using to liberate the others. So it's the Bourne series, except the main character has a personality, you can see what's happening during the fight scenes, and significantly less Jeremy Renner, even though there's actually a reason for him to have shown up this time. Big Marvel no prize to even non-fans who guess straight away that Pugh's Yelena is very clearly on hand doing a feature-length introduction audition to get fans on board with the idea of her as the eventual inheritor of the Black Widow title when the present-day continuity picks up again, given that the cheeky sisterly chemistry she has with Johansson throughout the mission planning and reconciliation second act is filtered through almost 80% heavily layered self-referential Marvel meta-dialogue designed to send their relationship conversations through an arc of acknowledging the inherent silliness to the extremely human Black Widow being one of the Avengers in the first place, and hanging a lampshade on things like the early 2010s sexy kung fu stunt fighting moves and superhero landings, all the way back around to, yeah, but actually Black Widow kinda rules, and little girls look up to her, and that flying leg scissors thing is pretty sick, and oh my god, yes, I guess we always love Black Widow after all, thank you Natasha, we'll never forget you, because hey, it's Disney's casino, and the mouse always wins. Likewise, there's a witty undercurrent belying the otherwise surprisingly dark plot turns and real human sadness that punctuate the second half subplot, wherein the sisters reunite their former pretend parents. Rachel Weisz is a proto-widow turned scientist, and a rousingly over-the-top David Harbour as Red Guardian, an almost was Cold War Soviet answer to Captain America, who's one part dad bod super soldier, one part every Russian stereotype ever as one guy, and one part super enthusiastic actor who probably didn't expect to ever be a Marvel superhero at this point, obviously having a blast and damn near stealing the entire movie every time he shows up, with mutual resentment over the other's sincere affection for their one-time family bond, and Johansson's resistance in trying to stay on mission, playing both his strong character beat and tacit nod to the audience that yes, there is no getting around the fact that we're all having to work overtime and force you to care about all this characterization now because it really didn't exist before. Still, like I said, Marvel people are all pros at this point, and the assembled cast and script get things solidly into place for the dramatic impact and character work to hit consistently, even as Act 3 starts going a little too hard on the secret kill switches and I meant to do that swerves, trying to recapture Captain America the Winter Soldier's cascading mashup of big absurd action and triple-cross spycraft when things were just getting about as intimate and nasty as you'll have to figure Marvel Disney will let them be in one of their mainline PG-13 projects, with an extra dark surprise new origin for classic Marvel Comics enemy the Taskmaster, who can mimic anyone's special fighting skills just by watching them, a very cool concept that looks killer on screen, and Winstone's loathsome Russian caricature baddie lumbering around as an intimidating embodiment of institutional violence against women who might as well have leapt straight out of the pages of the Girl with the Dragon tattoo novels. I mean, for limited screen time, they really do get you to hate this bastard. In the end, the pieces come together, and director Kate Shortland, whose previously best-known work would definitely have not made one think of Disney mega-franchise projects straight off, I'll say that, brings an able hand to what really ends up being some of the more raw and human dark drama the MCU has explored on the big screen in a while, which meshes more than agreeably with the extra crunchy, small-scale, not exactly the end-of-the-world action beats, at least up until the big 007-style fireworks blowout finale. But, you know, then again, by that point, you like everyone involved enough, and the general sense of, you know, they earned that's permeated the entire production has either got you or it hasn't. Call Black Widow an 8 out of 10, it could be more, but it's also more than enough.